Hello everybody, Noah Films here, back in the video, and today I'm going to be doing a director's commentary of my Avengers Annihilation Part 1. So, we're just getting right into the film here. We start off November 26, 2021, so it takes place a little bit over a year after the events of Avengers The Return, which it ended with Thanos snapping his fingers and half the universe being annihilated. So here we have the SHIELD agents. They're going after Daredevil. We don't really know that yet. At this time, though, the audience doesn't. First time watching. And then we have Ultron here. And the idea of the heroes being hunted down by Ultrons. So it was kind of like a little bit inspired by the Leo Legendary's Infinity Future, where like the heroes, they were getting hunted down by like some robots or drones or something, but instead I replaced it with Ultrons. Only like five. They have 6 Ultrons, yeah, but this one's turned off, so there's 5 for the rest of the series because this one went rogue, so there's a bit of an issue with that Ultron, but the other ones are good right now. So the other 5, they're working fine for SHIELD. They're doing their job. And now we go back a few weeks earlier, so this is a little under a year after the snap. And the snap, November 15th, 2020. We have all that jazz returning as Iron Man. Iron Man actually has a pretty small role in these first 2 parts, but in parts 3 and 4, he has some great development, I feel like. I'm really happy with what I did with this character. This press conference seems like a big deal. Many are saying a decision about the Avengers will be made. So there's some public outrage after the snap because the heroes, they've been running wild for a while now. I mean, SHIELD tried to regulate them before the Registration Act, which caused civil war, but now they just want to have them all arrested, not even give the heroes a chance, because they're done with it, because they kind of have indirectly caused, they've caused a lot of damage, and they're really the reason Thanos came back, because they didn't kill him. They didn't want to do that because they morally think it's wrong, but they probably should have killed Thanos, but they didn't, and he returned. So yeah, they did have him in super secure custody on Xandar, but of course he broke out. So yeah. And here we have Phil Coulson. He is the director of SHIELD. He has been ever since Nick Fury's death, which happened in my New Avengers series a few years ago. So yeah, there's some of that. So if you haven't really watched much of my Marvel Universe, they're not really good videos, honestly. They're still unlisted though. If you want to see them and know the backstory, I guess, to this, then I guess you can watch them or just skim over them and get the important details. But watching these directors' commentaries would probably be more helpful, because I'll kind of explain some stuff for those who haven't really been following.
Thank you. I am honored to earn this
You have DJM Animations as General Ross, now Director Ross, I guess.
I feel that we need to go in a new direction. For years, SHIELD has worked side by side with the Avengers. In fact, they're the reason that the Avengers assembled in the first place.
So this is kind of like the Registration Act, but a lot more intense. And after the disaster that was, Thanos coming back to Earth and that whole battle in New York, they just want to be done with the Avengers forever. But Coulson, he trusted the Avengers, but he was kind of pressured to step down, as we learned later on in the film. Yeah, DJM, he was General Ross in My Incredible Hulk: The Beast Awakens film, which was released last December. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. I mean, it is actually one of my most viewed videos already, which is great. But DJM was a really big collaborator on that film, so I'm glad to work with him again here in this one. And that General Ross was just the perfect person to be leading SHIELD here. with their more radical move of capturing all of the heroes. I feel like that's in character for Ross to be doing this.
If you have any information on the Avengers, you give it to S.H.I.E.L.D. so our job here can be easier.
Sir, we need to get out of here.
I agree. We can't go back to the house, however. We need a new place to stay.
Yeah, I do. I like how the scene turned out with the writing and stuff. So yeah, 3 weeks later, and a lot changes in 3 weeks. So all the heroes are kind of on the run now.
Give me all the money you have.
I wish I didn't use the Bucky head because we haven't even seen Bucky yet in this, so people might have been confused. Bucky has shorter hair in this one, but and for this scene, I kind of wanted to show that without the Avengers on the streets, crime begins to rise a little bit because the police, they aren't quite as capable to handle all this crime because regular criminals and stuff, they're gonna be like, oh, the Avengers aren't out here, and no heroes at all are out here, so it's best to take advantage and commit some crimes, I guess. Here we have Strange's little hideout.
Crime has begun to rise in New York once
That kind of gets trashed later on in the film here.
Some people are now supporting the Avengers.
And that breaking news thing, this is just all a green screen. I used green screen for a few shots in this film, including the last tiny little scene with Thanos on his island in space.
The other 9% are on the fence.
That having an island thing in space for Thanos is kind of inspired by the Infinity Gauntlet comic. Obviously, it's not. The island isn't quite as cool though. It's a little more basic, but Thanos is a little more of a simple man here, I guess.
We rely too heavily on these freaks. Soon crime will go down again. This is just the process of taking the city back into our own hands.
We'll see how things work out in the coming months.
I kind of wish I got more voice actors this one. I voiced a lot of people here. Now here we have Ross's office here.
What is this? Where's Daredevil?
Daredevil was killed by Ultron 6. We request Ultron 6's termination immediately.
You could have stopped Ultron when he was trying to kill Daredevil.
So this series has kind of been years in the making, honestly. I wrote the first draft for this back in 2019, along with Avengers: The Return. So this was obvious. Avengers: The Return and this series, they were always supposed to, be linked together and all that. Essentially my own Infinity War Endgame thing, but originally this was supposed to be way more like Endgame. Kind of like how I did Avengers: The Return, where it's like there's some things similar to Infinity War and some things not, but mostly does follow the plot of Infinity War. And that's how this was going to be with Endgame. But after Avengers: The Return released, and I got a lot of feedback, and a lot of people didn't really like that I essentially copied Infinity War. I went in a much different direction with this, and that was in late 2020. And the series was called Avengers: The Fallen, I believe, although I should have done a different spin on the title at the time. It's Avenge the Fallen, kind of like some of the Endgame promotion was like that. So I think that would have been kind of cool, but I'm happy with the title. I'm on now with Avengers: Annihilation. Yeah, Wolverine's a little more stubborn here. He's over the Avengers. He's done with all this. The Avengers already weren't really together that much before this whole thing happened with the S.H.I.E.L.D., but this just distanced them more. Because, after the snap, things got bad, and they go from bad to worse with S.H.I.E.L.D. getting involved like this. And this bar, so Wolverine kind of made a deal with the owner here that he was talking to earlier to kind of make this a safer place for him to go. And it's a smaller bar. Only the owner's most private and close friends, I guess, can come there. So there's only, as you see, there's only 2 people in the background here. Because there's not a lot of safe places for the heroes at this point, because there's a whole manhunt for all of them. And 44 Studios is Wolverine. He's been my Wolverine voice actor for so long. I'm glad I got him to return for this series.
Of our existence. Since we aren't fighting crime anymore, we haven't had to deal with these villains we used to fight. Because they're locked up.
These chairs,
In the past, we had locked up a lot
they kind of started to break a little bit, I guess. The tape was starting to wear down because I've had these chairs for a bit. That's the problem when you reuse the same props. Sometimes they kind of start to break down, especially chairs with the figures sitting in them.
We have some breaking news here from S.H.I.E.L.D. The superhero known as Daredevil was just captured.
And that suit comes from Tony Stark figure, I believe. Yeah, Tony Stark figure.
I think I should go. I'm going too.
And Shield kind of they followed Wolverine here. Wolverine didn't know about it though, because they were tracking him down through the city, and now they found him through here.
Turn yourselves in, and then I will put the gun
I mean, I didn't show any of that, but
not with him.
you know,
Put the gun down.
that's kind of what I was thinking happened. You know, Shield spotted Deadpool, I guess probably.
You can just turn yourselves in.
There's not like a concrete answer for how they found them, but you can just make your own headcanon, I guess.
We need to
Yeah, I'm guessing, yeah, it makes sense that they would have found the bar through Deadpool, because, you know, kind of risky for him to be there.
Where's the nearest parking lot? I don't see anything. Hands up!
And I put
Come on, let's
more music in this film than I did in Incredible Hulk, because one of the things in Incredible Hulk, I didn't put enough music, like, in it. Like, a lot of dialogue scenes were just silent, which, I mean, makes sense sometimes, but some of the other times it could have been some different music, and, like, so much of this film was without music, which, I mean, music can just add so much to a film, you know? I mean, a lot of the most classic films, you know, a lot of times you think of the music and stuff. Like, you know, the original Star Wars, all the Star Wars movies, but, like, especially the original one, just how groundbreaking that was, and with the score too, and that just made that film so much better, and all the Star Wars films so much better. And I like the action encounter with Ultron there.
Who is it?
This scene is kind of just me talking to myself, like, both the characters here voiced by me, and I really didn't want to do that. I was trying to get a strange voice actor, but just couldn't get one in time for this, so I had to voice Strange.
Step down. I don't believe you. It got
I tried making my voice a little deeper, I guess.
quit on us. Then you promoted the man who would be most dangerous to us. That wasn't my decision. Were you not the director of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
This hideout, it's kind of supposed to be in a kind of an abandoned building that Strange took over and, you know, put like some little furniture that he could find into the place, but you know, it's kind of just
One of those killed
small, kind of claustrophobic, and you know,
There was a flaw in the system.
it doesn't have any electricity either. That's why it's so much darker in here,
To assemble the event.
because right now it'll take place at nighttime, and
Don't think I've tried
it's
that already.
there's no
More
electricity, so
important than ever that we get the team
you know, he just kind of sits in
Even if
darkness
we can find
sometimes.
few members, that'll still be very valuable. Most of the team couldn't handle our failure. Some have closed themselves off completely from the team.
The shadows were pretty harsh from this lighting setup, though,
We have to take
so I should have maybe found a workaround for that, I guess.
what did S.H.I.E.L.D. do to force
But sometimes shadows can be a little unavoidable, to be honest.
They also threatened to expose the mistakes I made earlier in my career to the whole public. I was also losing the battle to stop the act of passing. With all this pressure, I decided that I wasn't helping anymore, so I resigned. I've spent the last few weeks trying to find
There's not really like any Thanos in this episode. And there's part 2. There's there's a little more Thanos in that, but it's really parts 3 and 4 where Thanos is really gonna do a lot more in there, become a lot more involved.
more proof that you're telling the truth so I can go through
Because I mean, right now there's really no reason for Thanos to do anything to the Avengers. Right now he's kind of just, he still has the gauntlet. I'm not doing the endgame thing where he destroys the stones and, you know, is not wanting it to get in anyone else's hands, because I'm thinking this Thanos is a little more egotistical and confident, where it's like, oh, I'm all powerful, I can keep the gauntlet for myself, and make sure that, you know, what I did cannot be undone,
Come on, let's get out of here.
and that he can essentially, you know,
We're so
protect
far
the
away.
universe, I guess, in his eyes.
Strange? We need to get out of here. Into the portal.
And having the idea of Ultron, you know, different Ultron robots hunting down the Avengers just makes things more urgent, you know. In my last film, Incredible Hulk, there was some criticisms about, you know, the film not being like super engaging, because, you know, there wasn't really, I mean, it's not just that it wasn't a lot of action, kind of just our heroes weren't really in danger much, you know, and they were just kind of like hanging out in an area, and, you know, like they were loosely being like trying to be found, you know. And here it's like a constant hunt, so, you know, a lot of the time heroes are going to be on the move and all that, you know, it's more urgent.
We've tried this a few times, Strange. It won't work.
We have no choice but to make it work. Daredevil is dead because of our unwillingness to work together again. Wait, Daredevil is
Yeah,
dead?
hearing that Daredevil was dead, just makes Strange
One of their Ultrons
take this more seriously,
it was shut
you know,
down,
or
though.
just
That means there must be five.
take the idea of assembling the Avengers again more seriously, you know, because he's kind of just looking out for himself. And most of the heroes are kind of just looking out for themselves with the state we find them in, because they've all split up
Shield recreated Ultron
and just to look out for themselves. Although Spider-Man and Bucky, they stayed together, but that's mostly because, you know, Spider-Man didn't want Bucky to,
gave the original blueprint of Ultron to Shield
you know,
this year.
be completely alone like that, because they have a closer bond.
He wanted it to be successful this time. He thought that Ultron could be perfect. The Avengers couldn't stop Thanos, so he thought that recreating Ultron again a few more times.
And Spider-Man's honestly one of the only ones that actually wants the Avengers back together.
You let this happen? I believed in Tony.
I mean, Strange obviously now wants the Avengers back together, but that's only after hearing about Daredevil's death. You say hearing about Daredevil's death kind of springs everyone into action.
When I say I want to fix everything, I mean it. That includes our failure against Thanos. Strange, I don't know if it's possible to do that. It's possible to reverse the snap.
And yeah, he's been wanting to reverse the snap for a while too, but with Shield that complicated things. But I'm thinking, you know, in the last year, even before all this Shield stuff happened, he was researching it in, you know, his different books and stuff that he has.
Where Thanos is. He could be anywhere. There are just too many questions that have to be answered here, Strange. We owe it to the universe to try.
None of the Avengers want this anymore.
That line is kind of like in Endgame where Black Widow's like,
It doesn't have to be.
we owe it to everyone who's not in this room to try. That's kind of what it's like a little bit.
It's not going to happen. If you truly think that, then we have already lost. I would rather die in battle than to live knowing that I didn't even try to save the universe. Are you guys in? This is your only shot. Me too. Thank you.
So the script for this, there was 3 different drafts, like official drafts, and this was the only thing I started when this is the only thing I was working on. Sorry, and I started writing out the official drafts in February, I believe. Wrote the first official draft, and that's when it finally got under the name Avengers Annihilation. I believe, yeah, it was Avengers Annihilation in the first draft.
How can I help?
The first official draft. There was a few drafts before that, like I said. And there's a few ideas I took from the drafts I made in the year before writing the official ones.
Are you paying with a credit card?
But for the most part, honestly, like
Our cheapest
from the first rough draft I made to the last draft, the draft I'm shooting these films on, is drastically different. It's a way different film. It's crazy how much this has changed over the years.
roll up your sleeve.
And even over the few drafts, it's changed. And I'm still making changes to the scripts too. You know, I mean, not a lot of major stuff, But I mean, there's a few things I've cut out. You know, there's some of the fluff that I've cut out of part 2,
Roll up your sleeve and give me some ID so I can
and some things that I cut out of part 2 that are gonna that affect part 3 and 4. So I'm gonna have to work on those scripts a little more. Like, I don't really like writing as I go, so like there's still like a fully realized plan, and I know where it's all going in the end, and that's not really gonna change.
If we can run fast enough, the police won't be able to spot us. Now let's move.
But just some more minor things to improve on the film.
Are SHIELD agents on the way? Yes, search around the place to see if they're hiding around here.
I think we lost them.
Yeah, and earlier on they had like these disguise things, kind of like in the Winter Soldier or whatever, where they can just disguise your face. So they kind of had that technology,
We didn't have to do this.
and it was provided to them by Tony
I don't want to leave you alone.
earlier on.
We can't afford to lose any of the team members. We haven't seen Tony, Thor, Rocket, and Groot in months. I don't want the Avengers to die.
As I said, Spider-Man's the only one who's actually wanting to make progress, besides Strange.
We need to get the team back together.
But Strange was a little more reserved at the beginning until he learned about Daredevil's death, like I said. Bucky's probably the most stubborn about not wanting the Avengers together. And the thing is,
Shield has
earlier on, like he says,
We can't just sit around and let them
he
capture
wanted
our
the
friends.
Avengers back together and wanted to make some progress when they split up after the snap. But I don't know, actually Tony, we learn, I mean, from dialogue here that Tony's pretty stubborn, but we're going to actually see that once we see him here later on in the series, that he's probably the most stubborn, actually.
Too bitter.
Yeah, Bucky and him are pretty stubborn about this. Deadpool, Spider-Man, and Strange are the ones who are a little more positive, I guess, or just wanting more progress.
They have been brainwashed by SHIELD. Like I said, I'm not leaving you. What would Steve have to
A lot of the lighting here is just like darker, bluish lighting for nighttime. Because, you know, this episode takes place at night. And part 2 is kind of going to take place more like early in the morning, kind of. So the lighting is going to be a little brighter in that one. So, you know, you don't have to turn your brightness all the way up when watching part 2 like you might have had to do in this one. Okay, I mean, it's not that dark. I try to make it dark, but not like super dark to where you can't see anything, you know?
We need to find out where the other team members are. Coulson, do you have any info on where they could be? Yes, I do.
Yeah, Coulson has a lot of inside info here, so he's a big help here.
They have changed, but if things have changed, I'll be notified by someone who is
And yeah, we do set up that there's somebody inside SHIELD, and we will actually
Let me look here.
find out who that is. Well, actually, it's not anybody significant, but we will see this person, and he will be involved more in the plot of part 2.
Do we have any more info on our 2 encounters with heroes?
We have sent out agents to the hotel to search for the Winter Soldier and Spider-Man.
And what about Wolverine and Deadpool?
Ultron 1 is currently searching for where they teleported to. If they are found, Ultron will give us a signal and we will go in.
Okay.
This is a reused set from Incredible Hulk. There actually are quite a few reused sets from Incredible Hulk.
They've been found?
This one is the is a kind of a computer room, just like it is right now, but it was just different painted colors than Incredible Hulk. And this set right here, Strange's Hideout, that was Rick Jones's house. So I had so many sets left over from Incredible Hulk that I reused like quite a lot of them here in this one, because, you know, I don't like there's so much cardboard I use that it's just like, oh, why not reuse it?
Understood.
Here we go, knocking the door down.
How did it find us? Take cover, Coulson.
Yeah, the Ultrons are pretty good at finding the heroes, and we'll see that still later on in the series. We'll see more of it.
This has to be doing something, right?
I like this fight scene. I mean, it is a bit of a shorter fight scene. There's not really any really long fight scene. I mean, Part 2, there are some longer action sequences, but it's really in Part 3. Part 3, there's going to be like 2 major action sequences that I'm really excited for. And obviously Part 4 will have, you know, a big climactic final battle. Yeah, there's definitely a decent amount of action in this series, you know. And yeah, this hideout area is already trashed, and the fight's not even over yet.
Sir, I've lost connection with Ultron. They made you out
There are some things I probably could have made more clear, like how they lost connection with him and stuff like that, you know.
My claws are one of the only things that can damage your armor.
That's just stuff I gotta work on with my writing.
Wow, what a bright idea. Choke the robot. That'll really work. I'm not trying to kill it. I'm simply immobilizing it. Oh, that's what I was supposed to do.
Could you help out a little?
Deadpool is just not being super helpful there.
Cover!
That's a good move by Strange. Originally, when I first wrote this, the hideout was actually supposed to be trashed like even more, to where it was like nearly gonna collapse, but then Strange was gonna like fix it all. But I decided not to do that because the hideout needed to be used later on, and I didn't have a good way of destroying it and then putting it back together too.
Hey, at least we're all alive.
I mean, it would have been cool, but it was just not realistic, you know. Because the walls would have been really destroyed, and you know, it would have been weird to put back together. I mean, I could have maybe rebuilt the entire set, but I just didn't want to go through that. So I mean, there's a decent amount of destruction still in there, and also it's only part 1, so I should probably save like the a lot of big destruction for action sequences for later.
Asgard has a message for you.
Here we go, Thanos' first appearance, and we have a green screen here, which I realize, you know what? I'm going to explain the problems with the green screen in part 2, because there are some that are going to come up. So I'll explain that in the commentary for part 2. Yeah, we kind of set up the Asgard stuff, and we're going to get a few scenes on Asgard for part 2, and some more scenes with Thanos. So we're going to introduce the space element of the series. And I was actually going to have Thanos speak here, but I couldn't get the voice actors soon enough, so I just had it kind of like this. But I think that honestly is a better cliffhanger here for part 1. So yeah, that's it. That kind of went fast, even though it's a 28 minute animation. So thank you all for watching this video. Thanks to all the cast. They did a great job. And yeah, that's it for this director's commentary. Part 2 will be coming out on September 18th, if all goes well. So I hope you guys are excited for that episode, and I'll see you guys in the next one.